Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about investing. And look, if you've ever felt kind of overwhelmed by the whole idea of making your money grow, then you're in the right place. We are going to break down the essentials and hopefully turn that confusion into confidence so you can start building some real wealth.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a question that might sound a little weird. Is your bank account actually losing money? I know, you see that number in your savings account slowly ticking up, but what about its actual value? Its real-world buying power. Is that silently shrinking?
Yeah, the answer is kind of yes, unfortunately. And the culprit, it's inflation. It's the slow, silent thief that just eats away at the value of your money. Think about it like this. If inflation's at, say, 3%, that $100 you save today, well, in a year, it'll only buy you what $97 buys you right now. Every single dollar just buys a little bit less tomorrow than it did today.
So this all leads to a really crucial point. Saving money is a fantastic habit. Don't get me wrong. But by itself, it's just not a real strategy for fighting off inflation, let alone building any kind of serious wealth for your future.
Right, because the goals are just completely different. Saving, that's all about preservation. You're just trying to keep your money safe for things you need soon. But investing, that's about growth. It's about putting your money to work so it can actually create more money for you over the long haul.
Okay, so if just saving isn't enough to beat inflation or hit those big financial goals, then what is? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You have to make your money work for you. Let's dig into how that happens. And that right there is the core idea of investing. It's really just putting your money into different assets, things like stocks, maybe some real estate, with the expectation that they're going to either spit out some income for you or, even better, just grow in value over time. Honestly, investing is probably the most powerful tool out there for building long-term security. A big reason for that is this kind of magical thing called compounding. That's where the money your investments make starts making its own money. It's how you actually get ahead of inflation, how you can fund those huge goals like buying a house or actually retiring one day, and how you build real, lasting wealth.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. I find it helpful to think of different investments like tools in a toolkit, Each one is built for a specific job, and each one has its own pros and cons.
And right away, you'll notice there's this fundamental trade-off. It's pretty straightforward. Usually, the higher the potential for big returns, the more risk you have to be willing to take on. This is like the central rule of the entire investing game. So let's take a look at stocks. You can think of them like a power drill. I mean, they've got massive potential for high returns, right? But they also come with a lot more risk, a lot more volatility. You got to handle them carefully.
Then you've got bonds. Now, bonds are more like a level, that tool that keeps things steady. They're stable, they're reliable, they offer these nice, predictable income payments. The catch? Well, the trade-off is they usually have way less growth potential than stocks do.
And that brings us to index funds. These are kind of like your all-in-one multi-tool. They're awesome because they give you instant diversification across a huge chunk of the market, and they're super low cost. The only thing is, their performance is pretty much tied directly to whatever the market as a whole is doing. Okay, so before you just run out and start picking tools from the toolkit, there are two golden rules you absolutely have to understand. This is how you play the game smart and, protect yourself. Rule number one is simple. Know yourself. We're talking about your risk tolerance. That's just your personal comfort level with the crazy ups and downs of the market. Figuring this out is so key because it helps you pick a strategy that you can actually stick with when things get choppy.
And, where you are in life plays a huge part in this. I mean, if you're young and have decades to go until retirement, you can probably afford to take on a bit more risk for that higher potential growth. But if you're going to need that money pretty soon, safety suddenly becomes way more important.
All right, and rule number two is maybe the most famous one of all, diversification. It's that classic, powerful idea you've heard a million times, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
So what does that actually look like? Well, putting 100% of your money into one single tech stock, that is an extremely risky portfolio. Think about it. If that one company tanks, you could lose pretty much everything. It's just a huge, concentrated gamble.
But now, let's look at a diversified approach. Here, you're spreading your money out across a bunch of different things. Index funds, bonds, maybe some real estate, some international stocks. That way, if one area takes a hit, it's not going to sink your entire ship. That's the real power of not having all your eggs in one basket.
So here's the really great news in all of this. Getting started down this path, It's way, way easier than most people think. Seriously, you do not need to be some Wall Street wizard to get in the game.
In fact, you can kick off your whole journey just by following these 5 pretty clear, actionable steps. First, figure out your goals. Then, get a handle on your risk tolerance. Do a little bit of research. And then, honestly, just start, even if it's just with a small amount.
And that's the most crucial point, really. You don't need a ton of money to get started. That barrier to entry, it's incredibly low these days. Truly, the most important thing you can possibly do for your financial future is just to start.
Look, just by understanding these basics, you've already taken the biggest, most important step toward building a much stronger financial future. So really, the only question left is, what are you going to let your money do for you?